The large ship landed on the frozen planet called Seven. The sky was gray and heavy with clouds. Snow covered everything as far as anyone could see. The wind was cold but not yet dangerous. This was the calm before the storm. Ho stepped out of the ship and felt the cold air hit his face. He was a young man from Earth, 28 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes. He wore a thick winter jacket, heavy boots, and carried a backpack on his shoulders. He looked around at the white world and took a deep breath. The cold air filled his lungs and made him feel alive. Behind him, other creatures walked out of the ship. They were aliens from different planets across the galaxy. Ho was the only human here. He was the representative of Earth for this trial. The Galactic Council had organized this event. They called it the Survival Trial. Every 10 years, they chose one planet with extreme conditions. Representatives from different species had to survive there for 3 days. The species that performed best would gain respect and better trading rights. It was a test of strength, intelligence, and adaptation. This year they chose Seven. It was one of the coldest planets in the known galaxy. In a few hours, a massive blizzard would begin. Temperatures would drop to minus 60 degrees. The wind would blow at 200 kilometers per hour. Most life forms could not survive such conditions. Ho watched the other aliens as they gathered near the ship. There were 12 species in total, including humans. A large reptilian creature stood nearby. His name was Commander, and he led the delegation. They had green scales and yellow eyes. They were proud warriors who believed they were superior to all other species. Looked at Ho and made a sound of disgust. "This is the human," he said in a deep voice. "Small, weak, no scales, no claws. How did your species even leave your planet?" Ho did not react to the insult. He simply nodded politely. "We found ways," he said quietly. Another alien approached them. She was tall and thin, with 4 arms and blue skin. Her name was Lady Myra from the planet. They were known for their advanced technology. Lady Myra carried several devices on her belt that glowed with soft light. "I have heard about humans," Lady Myra said, looking at Ho with curiosity. "Your species is very young. You joined the galactic community only 50 years ago. I am surprised they sent you to this trial." "Someone had to come," Ho replied with a small smile. More aliens gathered in the area. There were large creatures covered in thick white fur. They walked on 4 legs and had faces like wolves. Their leader, Elder Kern, seemed confident. His species came from a cold planet, so he believed this trial would be easy for them. There were insect-like beings with hard shells and many legs. They moved quickly and made clicking sounds when they talked. Their representative was called Click 7, a name that other species found strange but accepted. There were also the tall beings made of living rock, the small creatures with large eyes and soft bodies, the who had 6 legs and could change their skin color, and several other species, each one different and unique. A floating platform descended from the main council ship above. On it stood a being of pure light. This was Arbiter Saul, the judge of the trial. His voice echoed across the frozen landscape. "Welcome, representatives," Arbiter Saul announced. "You have been chosen to participate in the survival trial of 7. In exactly 2 hours, the great blizzard will begin. It will last for 3 days. Your task is simple: survive." The aliens murmured among themselves. Some looked worried, others looked confident. "You may use any resources you brought with you," the Arbiter continued. "You may use any natural resources you find on this planet. You may work alone or form alliances, but you may not return to your ships. The ships will leave the surface when the blizzard begins and will return when it ends." Ho listened carefully. He had studied this planet before coming here. He knew what the blizzard would bring. He had prepared for it. Commander laughed loudly. 3 days, that is nothing. They have conquered planets far more dangerous than this ice ball." "Your confidence is noted," Arbiter Saul replied calmly. But 7 has ended many such boasts before. The blizzard here is not like storms on other worlds. It is absolute. It is merciless. Elder Kern, the leader, stepped forward. His white fur blew gently in the wind. We do not fear the cold. Our ancestors survived the ice ages of. We will thrive here. Lady Myra checked her devices. I have brought the most advanced heating technology in the galaxy. My shields will protect me from any temperature. Click 7 made rapid clicking sounds. The translator device around his neck converted it to words. They can enter hibernation state. We will sleep through the storm and wake when it passes. Each species had their plan. Each species believed they would succeed. Ho said nothing. He simply watched and listened. A young scientist named Jun approached Ho. He was Lady Myra's assistant, and he seemed more friendly than the others. You are very quiet, human, Jun observed. Do you have a plan? Ho looked at the sky. The clouds were getting darker. I have a few ideas, he said. What kind of ideas? Your species has no fur, you have no scales, you cannot hibernate. Your technology is basic compared to ours. How do you plan to survive? Ho smiled. Humans are good at surviving. It is what we do best. Jun tilted his head in confusion. I do not understand. Your planet is not even particularly cold. How can you be good at surviving extreme cold? Our planet has every kind of environment, Ho explained. Hot deserts, frozen wastelands, dense jungles, deep oceans. Humans learn to live in all of them. We are adaptable. The Arbiter's voice echoed again. You have 1 hour and 45 minutes remaining. Prepare yourselves. The aliens began to move. Commander led his soldiers to a nearby rocky area. They planned to build a shelter using their strength. Lady Myra activated her devices and created a glowing energy dome around herself. Elder Kern and the dug into creating a cave with their powerful claws. Ho walked away from the group. He moved slowly across the frozen ground, his eyes scanning the landscape. He was looking for the right spot. The snow here was packed hard by the constant wind. That was good, very good. He found a small hill that blocked part of the wind. The snow here was deep and compressed, perfect for what he had in mind. Ho opened his backpack and pulled out a folding shovel. Some of the aliens nearby saw this and laughed. A shovel, Commander roared with amusement. The human brought a shovel to survive a deadly blizzard. How primitive. Ho did not respond. He simply got to work. The first hour passed quickly. Ho worked steadily, cutting blocks of snow with his shovel. He moved with purpose, each action planned and efficient. His breath made small clouds in the cold air, but he did not slow down. The sky grew darker. The wind began to increase. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled across the frozen plains. The great blizzard was coming. The blizzard arrived like an angry beast. One moment the wind was strong but manageable. The next moment it became a screaming monster of ice and snow. The temperature dropped so fast that Ho could feel it in his bones. -20, -30, -40, it kept falling. The snow came down in thick sheets. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Ho could barely see his own hands in front of his face. The wind howled so loud that it hurt his ears even through his hat. This was not just a storm. This was nature at its most violent. But Ho was ready. He had finished his work just in time. Before him stood an igloo. It was not fancy or beautiful, but it was solid. The dome shape was perfect, with walls made of tightly packed snow blocks. He had cut a small entrance tunnel that curved to block the wind. Inside, there was enough space for several people to sit comfortably. Ho crawled through the entrance tunnel and into the igloo. The wind still roared outside, but inside everything was quieter. The thick snow walls blocked the worst of the cold. It was still not warm, but it was bearable, much better than being outside. He sat down and caught his breath. His body was tired from all the work, but he felt satisfied. He had done what humans had done for thousands of years. He had built shelter from the cold using only snow and simple tools. His ancestors in the far north of Earth would have been proud. Outside, the other aliens were not doing so well. Commander and his soldiers had built a shelter from rocks. It had seemed strong and impressive, but the rocks did nothing to stop the cold. Heat escaped through every gap. The huddled together, their cold blood struggling to function. Reptiles needed warmth to survive. Without it, their bodies would slow down and eventually stop. Increase body heat, commanded his soldiers. Fight the cold. But there was no fighting this cold. The temperature had dropped to -50 and was still falling. They began to shake. Their movements became slow and clumsy. Their yellow eyes grew dull as their bodies started to shut down. "This cannot be happening," growled. His voice was weak now, barely above a whisper. We are the greatest warriors in the galaxy." One by one, his soldiers collapsed. They fell to the frozen ground, their bodies too cold to move. Commander tried to stand, tried to show strength, but his legs would not obey him. He fell to his knees and then onto his side. The mighty commander lay in the snow like a fallen statue. Not far away, Lady Myra's situation was also turning bad. Her energy dome had worked perfectly at first. The advanced technology kept the cold out and maintained a comfortable temperature inside. She had watched the other aliens struggle with a feeling of superiority. Technology was truly the best in the galaxy. Then the blizzard intensified. The wind hit the energy dome with incredible force. The dome flickered. Lady Myra checked her devices with growing panic. The power was draining faster than expected. The extreme cold was affecting the equipment in ways she had not predicted. "No, no, no," she muttered, pressing buttons frantically. "The calculations were perfect. This should not be happening." But it was happening. The dome flickered again, weaker this time. Lady Myra could feel the temperature inside starting to drop. The cold was getting in. Her thin body and light clothing were not designed for extreme cold. They came from a warm, comfortable planet. They had always relied on technology to deal with harsh environments. Now that technology was failing. "Jun," she called out to her assistant. "Jun, where are you?" But Jun could not hear her. The young had wandered too far from the dome before the blizzard hit. Now he was lost somewhere in the white darkness, alone and freezing. They were having their own problems. They had dug a cave into the, confident that their thick fur would protect them. And at first, it did. They sat in their cave, relatively warm and comfortable while the blizzard raged outside. But then water began to drip from the ceiling. The heat from their large bodies had started to melt the snow above them. Drip by drip, the water fell onto their fur. At first, it was just annoying. Then it became dangerous. Wet fur does not keep heat well. The water froze again in the extreme cold, turning their beautiful white coats into heavy blankets of ice. Elder Kern shivered violently. "This is not right," he said, his teeth chattering. "Our fur should protect us. We are creatures of the cold." "The water, Elder," one of his companions said weakly. "The water is killing us." They tried to shake the ice from their fur, but more dripped down constantly. They tried to move to a drier spot, but the whole cave was melting and refreezing. They were trapped in a prison of ice of their own making. They had chosen to hibernate. It seemed like a clever solution. They would simply sleep through the storm and wake up when it was over. Their hard shells would protect them from the cold. But extreme cold affects everything, even hibernating insects. Click 7 had curled into a tight ball along with his companions. They had entered the hibernation state successfully, but as the temperature dropped below -50, their bodies began to struggle. The chemical processes that kept them alive slowed down too much. Their shells, designed to protect them, actually trapped the cold inside their bodies. One by one, the hibernating stopped moving completely. They were not dead, not yet, but they were close. Without help, they would not survive until the blizzard ended. The beings made of living rock had been confident. Rock does not freeze, they had reasoned. They would simply wait out the storm. They were wrong. Extreme cold makes rock brittle. Tiny cracks began to form in their bodies. Each gust of wind carried ice particles that wore away at their surfaces. They tried to huddle together for protection, but it did not help. The cold was everywhere, attacking them from all directions. The small soft creatures were in the worst condition. They had no natural protection against the cold. They had hoped their emergency heating packs would be enough. But the heating packs could not compete with -60-degree temperatures. The little creatures had gone silent within the first hour of the blizzard. Whether they were dead or just unconscious, no one knew. They had changed their skin color to white, hopping to reflect the cold somehow. It did not work. Cold does not care about colors. They lay in the snow, their 6 legs frozen and useless, their large eyes closed against the biting wind. Everywhere across the frozen landscape, aliens were failing. They had come with confidence and pride. They had boasted about their strength, their technology, their natural adaptations. Now they lay scattered like fallen leaves, victims of a cold that did not care about their achievements or their history. Inside his igloo, Ho listened to the wind outside. He could not see the other aliens, could not hear their cries over the howling storm, but he knew they were in trouble. He had seen their preparations. He had known they would fail. The question was, what should he do about it? He could stay in his igloo. He was safe here. The temperature inside was cold but survivable, maybe -10 degrees. His body heat and the insulating snow would keep him alive for days. He had food and water in his backpack. He could simply wait out the storm and emerge as the winner of the trial. But that did not feel right. Ho thought about the aliens who had laughed at him, Commander with his insults, Lady Myra with her superior attitude. They had all looked down on him, the primitive human with his simple tools. And yet they were now dying while he was safe. Stupid conscience, Ho muttered to himself. He pulled his jacket and prepared to go back out into the blizzard. He was going to do something that probably made no sense. He was going to try to save the beings who had mocked him. Because that was what humans did. Ho took a deep breath and crawled toward the entrance tunnel. The wind screamed at him as he emerged from the igloo. The cold hit him like a physical force, trying to push him back. He could barely see anything in the swirling snow. But somewhere out there, aliens were freezing to death. Ho started walking into the storm. Ho fought against the wind with every step. The blizzard pushed him backward, threw ice into his face, and tried to knock him down. His jacket was good, but even the best clothing could not completely stop this kind of cold. He felt the chill seeping into his body, trying to steal his warmth. But he kept moving. He had tied a rope to his igloo before leaving. The other end was attached to his belt. This way, he could find his way back even if he got lost in the white darkness. It was a simple trick, something humans had learned long ago in the frozen north of Earth. Never go into a blizzard without a way to return. The first alien he found was Jun, the young scientist. The blue-skinned creature was lying in the snow, half buried by the drifting white powder. His 4 arms were wrapped around his thin body, and he was not moving. Ho knelt beside him and checked for signs of life. Jun's skin was ice cold and his breathing was very shallow, but he was still alive. Barely. "Can you hear me?" Ho shouted over the wind. Jun's eyes opened slightly. They were filled with confusion and fear. "Human," he whispered weakly. "Why are you here?" "I am going to help you," Ho said. "Can you walk?" Jun tried to move, but his body would not respond. The cold had stolen his strength. "I cannot feel my legs," he said, his voice breaking with despair. Ho did not waste time with words. He grabbed Jun under the arms and started to drag him through the snow. He was taller than Ho, but very light. His species had thin bones and lean bodies. This made him easier to carry but also more vulnerable to the cold. The journey back to the igloo was difficult. The wind fought against them every step of the way. Ho's muscles burned with effort. His lungs ached from breathing the freezing air. But he did not stop. Finally, they reached the igloo. Ho pushed Jun through the entrance tunnel and then crawled in after him. Inside, the relative warmth felt like heaven. Ho allowed himself a moment to rest, breathing heavily. Jun lay on the floor of the igloo, his eyes wide with amazement. "It is warm in here," he said with wonder. "How is this possible? This shelter is made of snow." "Snow is a good insulator," Ho explained briefly. "It traps air. The air holds heat." Jun looked around at the curved walls of packed snow. "This is remarkable. Such simple materials, but so effective." "Rest now," Ho said. "I have to go back out." "Out?" Jun tried to sit up but was too weak. "You cannot go back into that storm. You will die." Ho shook his head. "There are others who need help." Before Jun could protest more, Ho crawled back out into the blizzard. His next rescue was more difficult. Commander was a big creature, heavy with muscle and thick scales. The leader was completely unconscious, his body cold and stiff. His soldiers lay around him in similar condition. Ho could not carry. The reptile was simply too heavy. Instead, he had to drag him across the snow inch by inch. It took all of his strength. Several times he fell to his knees, exhausted, but each time he got back up and kept pulling. When he finally got to the igloo, Ho was breathing so hard that his chest hurt. His hands were shaking from the effort, but there was no time to rest. He went back for the other, one by one. Each trip was harder than the last. The cold was affecting him now. His fingers were growing numb. His thoughts were becoming slow. These were dangerous signs. He knew he was pushing his body to its limits. But he thought about his ancestors, the humans who had lived in the Arctic thousands of years ago. They had faced conditions like this regularly. They had survived through determination and will. They had never given up. Ho would not give up either. He found Lady Myra next. Her energy dome had completely failed. She was sitting in the snow, her devices dark and useless. Her blue skin had turned a pale gray color. She looked up at Ho with eyes full of shock. "You came for me," she said, her voice weak with disbelief. "After how I treated you, after what I said about humans." "We can talk later," Ho said. "Can you stand?" With his help, Lady Myra was able to walk. She leaned heavily on him as they struggled through the storm. She was stronger than Jun, better able to fight the cold, but she was still fatting fast. When they reached the igloo, she gasped at what she saw. Commander and his soldiers lay on one side, slowly warming up. Jun was on the other side, looking much better than before. The small space was crowded but functional. "How many more?" Lady Myra asked as she sat down. "Many," Ho replied. "Too many." He went out again. They were the biggest challenge. Elder Kern and his companions were large creatures, covered in ice-matted fur. They were heavy and awkward to move, but they were also still conscious, which helped. "Human," Elder Kern said when Ho found them. "You should not be here. You should be hiding in your little snow house." "My little snow house can save your life," Ho said. "Can you walk?" Elder Kern tried to stand. His legs were weak, but they still worked. With great effort, he rose to his feet. His companions did the same. "Follow me," Ho said, "and stay close. If you lose sight of me, you will die." They followed him through the blizzard. They moved slowly, their frozen fur weighing them down. Several times, one of them started to fall behind. Ho had to go back and urge them forward. When they finally reached the igloo, there was a problem. The space inside was already crowded. They were too big. They would not fit. Ho looked at the situation and made a quick decision. "We need to make it bigger," he said. Despite his exhaustion, he started cutting more snow blocks. Elder Kern watched him work for a moment, then understood. The big grabbed snow and started packing it into blocks alongside the human. His companions joined in. Together they expanded the igloo. They added a second chamber connected to the first by a short tunnel. The work went faster with help. Within half an hour, there was enough space for everyone. They crawled inside and finally felt relief from the killing wind. The temperature inside was still cold, but it was survivable. Their frozen fur slowly began to thaw. "I do not understand," Elder Kern said, looking at the snow walls around him. "We are inside snow. Snow is cold. How is this warmer?" "The snow blocks the wind," Ho explained, "and it traps your body heat. The more warm bodies inside, the warmer it gets." He did not have time for a longer explanation. There were still more aliens out there. They were hard to find. Their dark shells blended into the shadows of the storm. Ho almost walked past them 3 times before finally seeing them huddled together in the snow. They were in bad condition. Their hibernation had become too deep. They were barely alive, their vital signs almost impossible to detect. Ho carried them one by one. They were not heavy, but there were many of them. Each trip through the blizzard took more energy that he did not have. His legs felt like they were filled with sand. His arms ached so badly that lifting them was pure pain. But he did not stop. They were cracked and damaged when he found them. The living rock beings looked terrible, their bodies covered in tiny fractures. They could barely move. "Leave us," one of them said. "We are too heavy, you cannot carry us." "Then walk," Ho said simply. "One step at a time, follow me." Somehow they did. They moved like ancient statues coming to life. Each step was slow and painful, but they moved forward, following the small human through the storm. Ho was able to carry several of them at once, but they were also the most fragile. He had to be very gentle with them. Their small bodies felt like they might break at any moment. They were scattered across a wide area. Finding them all took precious time. Ho had to search through the snow, looking for any sign of the 6-legged beings. His fingers were so numb now that he could barely feel what he touched. By the time he brought the last alien into the expanded igloo, Ho was running on pure will. His body had given up hours ago. Only his mind kept him moving. He crawled through the entrance tunnel and collapsed on the floor. Around him, aliens from 12 different species lay in various states of recovery. The igloo was crowded and chaotic, but everyone was inside. Everyone was alive. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the howling wind outside and the heavy breathing of exhausted beings. Then Commander stirred. The leader opened his yellow eyes and looked around in confusion. His gaze landed on Ho, who lay motionless on the floor. "The human," said, his voice rough. "The human saved us all." And then consciousness finally left Ho, and everything went dark. Ho woke up slowly. His body felt heavy and warm. Someone had covered him with what felt like thick fur. He opened his eyes and saw curved white walls around him. The igloo. He was still inside the igloo. He tried to move, and pain shot through every muscle. His arms and legs felt like they had been beaten with hammers. His hands were wrapped in cloth that he did not remember putting there. Everything hurt. "He is awake," someone said. Ho turned his head and saw Jun, the young scientist, sitting nearby. The blue-skinned alien looked much better than before. His forearms were moving normally, and color had returned to his skin. "How long was I unconscious?" Ho asked. His voice came out rough and weak. "About 6 hours," Jun replied. "You pushed yourself too hard. Lady Myra said your body temperature dropped to dangerous levels after you collapsed." Ho looked around the crowded igloo. Aliens were everywhere, packed together like passengers on a too-small bus. They were huddled in one corner, their scales now showing healthy colors. They had dried their fur and looked much more comfortable. They had come out of their deep hibernation and were clicking softly to each other. Everyone was alive. "You are a fool," Commander said. The big pushed his way toward Ho. For a moment, Ho thought the reptile might attack him, but instead knelt down beside him. "You are a fool," repeated. You risked your life to save beings who insulted you, who laughed at you, who said you were weak and primitive. Why? Ho thought about the question. Why had he done it? He could have stayed safe inside his igloo. He could have let the others freeze. No one would have blamed him. On my planet, Ho said slowly, we have a saying. The measure of a person is not how they treat their friends. It is how they treat those who cannot help themselves. Stared at him for a long moment, then bowed his head. I have misjudged your species, human. I spoke with ignorance and pride. Forgive me. There is nothing to forgive, Ho said. You did not know. Lady Myra approached next. The scientist looked at Ho with new eyes, as if seeing him for the first time. I have a question, she said. How did you know to build this structure? How did you know it would work? Ho tried to sit up. Jun helped him, propping him against the snow wall. Once he was comfortable, Ho looked at the gathered aliens. They were all watching him now, all listening. Do you want the short answer or the long answer? He asked. Long, several voices said at once. We have time. Ho smiled. Then let me give you a lesson about survival. He gestured at the walls around them. This structure is called an igloo. My species invented it thousands of years ago. People living in the frozen north of our planet built them to survive the winter. But it is made of snow, Click 7 said. This translator clicked and buzzed as it converted his words. Snow is frozen water. Water is cold. How can cold material create warmth? That is the clever part, Ho explained. Snow is not just frozen water. It is frozen water mixed with air. Lots of air. All those tiny air pockets are what make snow feel soft when you walk on it. Elder Kern nodded slowly. I think I understand. Air does not transfer heat well. Exactly, Ho said. Air is one of the best insulators in nature. When you pack snow into blocks and build walls, you create a barrier full of trapped air. The air stops heat from escaping. He pointed at the dome shape of the ceiling. The shape matters too. A dome has no corners. Heat rises, and in a dome it has nowhere to escape. It just circles around and around, staying inside. A square room would lose heat through the corners. Lady Myra was listening with intense focus. This is basic thermodynamics, she said, but applied in a way I never considered. We always use technology to solve such problems. Heaters, energy shields, power generators. We never thought to use the environment itself. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one, Ho said. Technology can fail. Power runs out. Machines break. But snow will always be snow. It does not need batteries. One of them spoke up. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. You planned this from the beginning. You knew the storm would be too strong for our methods. Ho shook his head. I did not know for sure. I just prepared for the worst. Humans always try to prepare for the worst. But how did you know our methods would fail? The pressed. Ho looked around at the different aliens. Commander, your species is cold-blooded. You need external heat to function. In extreme cold, your body shuts down. No amount of strength can overcome biology. Nodded grimly, we know this now. Lady Myra, Ho continued, your technology is impressive, but it needs power. And extreme cold drains power faster than normal conditions. The colder it gets, the harder machines have to work. Eventually, they fail. Lady Myra touched her useless devices. My engineers never tested them in such conditions. We assumed our calculations were perfect. Elder Kern, Ho said, looking at the leader. Your fur is excellent insulation, but wet fur is terrible insulation. You did not account for your own body heat melting the snow around you. The big creature lowered his head. A mistake we will not repeat. Click 7, hibernation seems like a good solution, but your bodies still need to maintain basic functions during hibernation. In extreme cold, even those basic functions can stop. You needed external warmth to keep you alive, not sleep. The clicked rapidly. We did not know this. On our world, hibernation has always worked. Every planet is different, Ho said gently. What works in one place may not work in another. This is why adaptability is so important. Jun raised one of his 4 hands like a student in a classroom. But how do humans know all this? You said your species only recently joined the galactic community. How can you have so much survival knowledge? Ho was quiet for a moment, then he spoke. Humans have been fighting to survive for millions of years. Our planet tried to kill us many times. Ice ages froze our ancestors. Droughts starved them. Predators hunted them. Diseases attacked them. We survived because we learned. Every disaster taught us something new. He held up his hands, showing his flexible fingers. Our bodies are not special. We have no scales, no fur, no shells. We cannot fly or breathe underwater. We are not particularly strong or fast, but we have something more valuable. We have minds that solve problems, and we have the determination to keep trying until we succeed. The aliens listened in silence. Outside, the blizzard still raged, but inside the igloo, everything was calm. The igloo is not just a shelter, Ho continued. It is a symbol of human survival. Our ancestors had nothing. No advanced technology, no powerful bodies, just intelligence and will. They looked at a frozen wasteland and found a way to live there. They turned their enemy into their protection. The snow that would kill them became the walls that saved them, Lady Myra said softly. That is beautiful. That is human, Ho replied. Commander stood up to his full height. Even hunched over in the igloo, he was impressive. I have led armies across 100 worlds, he said. I have fought enemies that would make others tremble with fear. I thought I understood strength. But today, a small human showed me that true strength is not in muscles or weapons. It is in the mind and heart. He placed his clawed hand over his chest in a gesture of respect. From this day forward, the Empire will consider humans as honored allies. This I swear. Elder Kern rose as well, though the cramped space made it difficult. The will do the same. We were proud fools. You humbled us with kindness. We will not forget. One by one, the aliens made similar pledges. Lady Myra, Click 7. All of them swore friendship and respect to the human who had saved their lives. Ho felt embarrassed by all the attention. I just did what needed to be done, he said. Any human would have done the same. That is exactly the point, Jun said. Any human would have done the same. Your entire species is like this. You help others even when it costs you. You never give up even when things seem hopeless. You turn obstacles into opportunities. The young smiled at Ho. I think we all have much to learn from humans. Outside, the wind continued to scream. The blizzard still had many hours left to run. But inside the igloo, surrounded by aliens who had become friends, Ho felt warm for the first time since arriving on this frozen world. He had come to this planet as an outsider, a representative of a species that others considered primitive and weak. Now he was something else entirely. He was a teacher, a savior, a bridge between worlds. And somehow that felt right. 3 days passed inside the igloo. 3 days of howling wind and deadly cold outside. 3 days of warmth, conversation, and unexpected friendship inside. Ho taught the aliens everything he knew about survival. He explained how humans kept themselves warm by staying active and eating high-energy foods. He showed them breathing exercises that helped the body generate heat. He even taught them songs from Earth that humans sang to keep their spirits up during long winters. The aliens were eager students. Commander practiced the breathing techniques until he could feel warmth spreading through his cold blood. Lady Myra took detailed notes on everything, determined to share this knowledge with her people. Elder Kern learned the songs and sang them in his deep, rumbling voice. But more than survival techniques, the aliens learned about humanity. They asked Ho endless questions about his species. What was Earth like? How did humans live? What did they believe? What did they fear? What did they hope for? Ho answered as best he could. He told them about the blue oceans and green forests of his. He described the great cities that humans had built and the art they had created. He spoke of human history, both the good and the bad, the wars they had fought, the peace they had achieved, the mistakes they had made and the lessons they had learned. "You hide nothing," Click 7 observed. "You tell us about your failures as openly as your successes. Why?" "Because our failures made us who we are," Ho said. "Every mistake taught us something. We are not perfect. We never claim to be, but we always try to be better." Jun spent most of his time talking with Ho. The young was curious about everything. He asked about human science, human art, human relationships. He wanted to understand how a species so young could accomplish so much. "I think I know your secret," Jun said on the second day. "You humans are dreamers. You look at what is impossible and say, maybe we can do it anyway. You refuse to accept limits." Ho smiled. "Maybe you are right, we are stubborn that way." The blizzard finally ended on the morning of the third day. The wind died down slowly, like a giant beast falling asleep. The clouds parted, and pale sunlight touched the frozen surface of 7 for the first time in days. Ho crawled out of the igloo first. The world outside was beautiful in a harsh way. Everything was covered in fresh white snow. The sky was clear blue. The air was still cold, but compared to the storm, it felt almost warm. Behind him, the aliens emerged one by one. They blinked in the sudden brightness, looking around at the frozen landscape they had survived. In the distance, shapes appeared in the sky. The ships were returning. Arbiter Saul's platform descended first. The being of light looked down at the group gathered near the igloo, and even his featureless face seemed to show surprise. "All of you," the Arbiter said, "all of you survived." "Yes," Ho replied simply. The Arbiter was silent for a moment. In the history of the survival trials, no event has ever ended with all participants alive. There are always losses, always casualties. The trials are designed to test the limits of each species. Most reach those limits. Commander stepped forward. His scales gleamed in the pale sunlight. "We reached our limits," he said, "and then the human carried us past them." Arbiter Saul turned his attention to Ho. "Explain." So Ho explained. He told the Arbiter about the igloo, about the rescues, about the days spent teaching and learning inside the snow shelter. He did not boast or exaggerate. He simply told the truth. When he finished, the Arbiter was silent for a long time. The other ships had landed now. Observers and officials from the Galactic Council emerged, gathering to hear what had happened. "The human built a shelter from snow," Arbiter Saul announced to the crowd. "He then risked his life to rescue every other participant. He kept them all alive for 3 days in conditions that should have killed them. He did this not for glory or reward, but because he believed it was right." Murmurs spread through the gathered aliens. Many looked at Ho with new eyes. "The winner of this trial is clear," the Arbiter continued. "The human representative has demonstrated survival skills far beyond any other species. But more importantly, he has shown qualities that we as a galactic community often forget. Compassion, generosity, courage in the face of danger." Lady Myra stepped forward. "If I may speak, Arbiter." "You may." "The humans should not only win this trial, they should be reclassified in our records. Currently, humans are listed as a Class 4 species, primitive, limited. This is wrong. Humans are perhaps the most adaptable species we have ever encountered. They should be recognized as such." Commander raised his voice. "The Empire agrees. Humans have earned our respect through action, not words. They should be elevated to at least Class 2 status." "The support this," Elder Kern added. One by one, the other species voiced their agreement. The clicked enthusiastically. The rumbled their approval. The chimed in with their small voices. The changed their skin color to a bright gold, which was apparently a sign of honor. Arbiter Saul raised his hand for silence. The Council will consider this recommendation, but I believe the outcome is not in doubt. Humans have proven themselves today in ways that our tests and measurements could never capture. The Arbiter turned to Ho one final time. You have changed things, young human. You have changed how the galaxy sees your species. This moment will be remembered for a very long time. Ho did not know what to say. He had come here as a nobody, a representative of a small, young species that most aliens ignored. Now he stood at the center of galactic attention, praised by beings from a dozen different worlds. I did not come here to change anything, he finally said. I just did not want anyone to die. Arbiter Saul made a sound that might have been a laugh. That is exactly why you have changed everything. You acted not for glory or power, but simply because you cared. This is what makes humans special. This is what makes them dangerous. Dangerous? Jun asked. Dangerous in the best way, the Arbiter explained. A species that cares about others, that refuses to give up, that turns enemies into friends. Such a species will go far, very far indeed. The ships began to prepare for departure. The trial was over, but something larger had begun. Ho took one last look at his igloo before leaving. The simple structure still stood against the frozen landscape. It had been his home for 3 days. It had been a classroom, a hospital, and a place where enemies became friends. It was just snow and air, arranged in a clever way, but it had changed everything. Jun approached him as they walked toward the ships. Will I see you again, Ho? Ho smiled. The galaxy is large but also small. I am sure our paths will cross. I would like that, Jun said. I would like to visit Earth someday, to see the planet that produces beings like you. You would be welcome, Ho replied. Humans always welcome those who come in friendship. As the ship lifted off from 7, Ho looked out the window at the shrinking landscape below. The frozen world grew smaller and smaller until it was just a dot of white against the black of space. He thought about everything that had happened. The trial, the blizzard, the aliens who had mocked him and then been saved by him. The friendships formed in the warmth of a snow shelter while death raged outside. He had come here alone, a single human against the cold and the doubts of an entire galaxy. And he had proven something that humans had always known, but others were just learning. Humanity was not defined by its technology or its strength. It was defined by its heart. And the heart of humanity would never stop beating. On the bridge of the council ship, Arbiter Saul watched the human through the monitors. The young man sat quietly, looking out at the stars with thoughtful eyes. He did not celebrate or boast about his victory. He simply sat and watched and thought. A remarkable species, one of the council observers said. I confess I did not expect this outcome. No one did, Arbiter Saul replied. That is what makes them so interesting. Humans surprise us. They always have. I suspect they always will. The observer nodded. What do you think they will do next? Arbiter Saul considered the question. What would humans do next? They had proven themselves as survivors. They had shown compassion and wisdom. They had earned the respect of older, more established species. I do not know what they will do next, the Arbiter finally said. But I look forward to finding out. The galaxy just became much more interesting. And far below, on the frozen surface of 7, the igloo stood alone in the silent snow. A monument to human ingenuity. A symbol of what one species could achieve when it refused to accept defeat. The wind blew gently across its surface, but the walls held firm. They would stand for a very long time.